Hello guys, this is Ty. Next video here is negotiating price and terms. You now know how to evaluate a property, and based on who you've been dealing with as far as potential buyers, or what you and I probably have discussed as far as a good cap rate for a particular area or market, you'll know how to go about negotiating a deal with a particular owner, hopefully a motivated seller. First up is an all cash offer. An all cash offer, the same with houses, needs to be a smoking deal. When I say smoking, we're talking 14, 15, 16% cap rates. 12 or 13, okay. But when we're talking about smoking, 14, now some areas, 14, 15% cap rates are going to be the norm. But for most areas, that's still going to be an attractive deal. As before, obviously there has to be, you have to also take in consideration the occupancy rate, or the rents at the current market rate, meaning they being rented out at the maximum amount that area would command, the condition of the property, how many units, where it's located, the class of the property, whether it's an A, B, C, or D. All those things will factor in. Okay, so when you make an all cash offer, the seller has to give you an all cash price. And just like with wholesaling houses, the only way this stuff is going to work is if the seller is going to be on the same page with you. And obviously, everybody's not going to be the majority of people are not going to be on the same page with you, but you're not selling pencils, just like the statement if you just listen to any degree of my information, I always use that statement. And you're definitely not selling pencils when you start talking about apartments, because of the amount of money that can be made on one particular transaction. So the seller is going to have to give you an all cash price in order for you to take advantage of a deal like that, or him to be able to move it quickly, which an all cash price normally is going to mean speed. So it's going to have to be a smoking deal. So you'll go through your motions as far as determining how attractive the property is by simply doing through the cap rate explanations I did in the previous video, or if you have buyers that are looking to do it on a per door basis, then you'll do the same thing to make it an attractive deal. Now, owner financing. All right. In some cases, the deal may be smoking with owner financing, and then the deal may be just an okay deal with owner financing. Or you may have a situation where it's just a deal that's almost at retail, but because they're offering owner financing, it's an attractive deal because you are taking on a cash flow generating, revenue generating asset, where the buyer would be taking that on. So owner finance can go in so many directions. I could probably do a whole course just on that, because you'll have owners, in most cases you're going to have some skin in the game, meaning there's going to have to be some money put down in order for them to finance the property. But there will be situations that will present themselves where you don't, or the person that purchases the property doesn't have to put anything down. Now in those situations, that's when you may take a look at actually acquiring the property itself if the owner doesn't require to put much down, or if it's a situation where the amount that can be put down is something that you can actually afford yourself. So with that being said, to give you an example of an owner finance deal, like on the previous video where that property was $2 million, the owner may want 10% down, which will be $20,000, and finance it at whatever interest rate. And so obviously when you're evaluating a deal like that, the revenue that the apartments are generating need to take care of the payment, number one, but they also need to cash flow a certain amount. And that's going to vary depending on who you're dealing with as far as a potential buyer. So But there's so many ways you can do it. You know, the owner may want owner financing where he didn't want anything up front, but you to be able to pay a balloon payment in 12 months or 24 months. So because he's technically still owns it, he just would have to foreclose on it. But he'll give you an opportunity maybe to manage the property or do some extensive repairs to get it back up and going. And at that point, you may be able to bring in traditional financing, or the seller, the buyer may be able to bring in potential traditional financing, refi the property, cash the original owner out, and move on. But in any situation, you as the wholesaler, you're going to get paid up front. So whenever you're structuring your deals, which I'll help you, whenever you're structuring your deals, even if that down payment is 10%, just using that example, $2 million, 10%, and say you want to make 50 grand off of it. So you'll need to bump that up to an amount as far as a down payment where you're going to get paid. Now, you can actually let your seller know, hey, the owner financing, you only wants 10% down, but my fee is going to be 50 grand on this. That'll be negotiable. If you have a buyer that really wants it, putting 70 down basically to acquire a $2 million property shouldn't be a problem at all. It shouldn't be a problem at all. So, but that's well, I said 10%. I'm sorry. Let me back up. My math is wrong on that. That's 1%. 20,000 is 1%. 10% on $2 million would be 200,000. I'm sorry. It would be 200,000. So in order for you to make your $50,000, you just bump it up a couple of percent to make your money in that situation. Now, if my math is correct, you're only talking to make 50 grand on $2 million. Let me see here. Just 1 second on my calculator. Would be 2.5%, which is not a lot. That's common. So 2.5%. So you would mark that up. You just basically say they want 12.5% down. So the owner gets his 10%. You take the other 2.5. You put 50 in your pocket. The owner puts 200,000 in their pocket. So that's owner financing. All right. Now, down payments and loans. So when I say this, I mean traditional loans. They're going to a bank, a lender, and they're going through the normal process to get a loan from a bank. And in today's climate, as of the date of this video, in most cases, banks going to want a minimum of 20% down with everything else in place as far as their requirements of credit, assets. You know, with commercial real estate, it'll vary just like with any lender. Sometimes the asset, if it's strong enough, some things that the buyer may have in place as far as that may not be as strong in some area because the property is such a strong property, they may forgive that just to get that $2 million loan or whatever the balance would be out there down payment. They may make him come up with more. Again, in this situation, on how you would get paid as the wholesaler, that buyer is still going to have to cash you out in some form or fashion at closing. Now, when they got a lender involved, that may get a little tricky. So you might have to be we may have to do something a little bit more creative in order for you to get paid on the transaction, but it definitely can be done. It's not the same as using a residential loan to get to buy a property whenever someone's going to actually live in it. It's almost impossible to get paid in those situations without doing something you're not supposed to do. Whereas in this situation, it's part of course that there may be a marketing fee in place, or a lot of times when you see these properties advertised, it'll say 2 million plus 2. So that means that somebody's going to get 2 points, meaning 2% of the sales price, or 1% or 3%. So, but it can still be done. Now, another option here is if you negotiate a deal, which this is a form of owner financing, is a master lease option. And that's basically where, assuming you're using this $2 million property as the example, and we'll just say the owner has a note in place of about $7,000 a month, but the property is generating after expenses $20,000. So you may negotiate a deal and the owner is used to that that spread of the 7,000 and the 20,000 as far as the difference of what his note is, his expenses, and the actual income coming in from that property on a monthly basis. So you may negotiate a deal instead of the owner receiving that additional $13,000 over the interest payment. He may only receive I don't know, 7,000 of it, and you put the other 5 in your pocket. Now that's a situation where when you structure a deal of that type, that's going to be very attractive to a potential buyer also. And so again, you'll get your money at closing on a transaction like this. Whereas a transaction like this will happen a lot faster, maybe even in cash in some situations because of how attractive the terms may be. But that's basically a master lease option in a nutshell. Is basically where the owner will basically lease the property to you, and in most cases they already have financing there. But even if they didn't, it doesn't matter, and they'll give you a price on what they want per month. Whereas the owners, they still actually own the property, but they are leasing the property to you. And in most cases, you'll take on the management or leave the existing management in place. But this is a way, in most cases, a lot of times the owner is probably managing this property himself, and he's just tired of it, really don't want to lose the income or all of it. And it's an option for him to still receive some income from the property, but relieve himself of the headache of managing the actual property at that time. So those are your actual negotiating techniques that you can use and to put a deal together. As I said, obviously I'm going to be here still to help you with it, but all cash offers, owner financing, your traditional financing with a down payment and loan, and then the master lease option. This is the negotiating price and terms video. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.